This is the way that we bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. Igniting the fire within you. Exalting the melody of freedom. These are the things that will bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. So gather the faithful. Tell everyone to stand and shout loud. Shout loud. Shout loud. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, down. Down, down, down.
Let me tell you, it's in the air. Joy is in the air. Love is in the air. Can you feel it? What it feel like? Freedom. What it feel like? Don't sleep on it, brother. You might get left, sister. Can you feel it? What it feel like? Freedom. What it feel like? Justice. No need to be counted, cause I am down. Down, down, down. Down, down, down. Down for the end of racism, for the end of bigotry, cause I am down. For the end of misogyny, that's right. For all the isms out there, just down, down, down. Let's bring it down. Rise up, people. No more foolishness, and let's bring it way down.
Riding the river of change into the cries of contrition. This is the way that we bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. We are the children of Eden, dancing and celebrating freedom. We are the ones that must bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. So gather the faithful. Tell everyone to stand and shout loud. Shout loud. Shout loud. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. We've got to bring it down. Down. Stand up and shout. Stand up and shout. Rise together.
Accountability starts now. The Eric Dawson Radio Show.
Yeah. Rise up. Stand up, shouting loud.
If you are not prepared to come to that table and to represent that voice, don't come. Because we don't need any more brown faces that don't want to be a brown voice. We don't need black faces that don't want to be a black voice. We don't need Muslims that don't want to be a Muslim voice. We don't need queers that don't want to be a queer voice. And if you're worried about being marginalized and stereotyped, please don't even show up.
Good morning, Informed Class.
Good morning, Eric Dawson. Good morning, my brother. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. Welcome everybody to another episode. Another episode, Kevin.
Yeah, another episode.
Another episode, man. Oh, gosh. Hey, Kevin, I'm going to ask you to slide to your left just a little bit. Your left. There we go. Perfect.
Good now. Okay. I'm cool.
Another episode. But we're here, and we're ready to rock and roll. And we have, as you see in the middle, we have Vincent Squire, who's from South Jersey. He's running in the...
Your phone is breaking up, Eric. I don't know why.
My phone?
Yeah, well, it's clear. It's better now.
All right. So
it's better now.
So Vincent Squire is running in the U.S. Senate race. He's running against Cory Booker, and I think there are a couple other candidates who are running. And so we're going to have a discussion about things going on in New Jersey, things going on nationally, and anything else that we see in the thread. So Kevin, man, I mean, where do you want? You know where I want to start, but I'm gonna.
Well, I think I should allow you to do whatever you want to do and start the show however you want to start the show, because I'm quite prepared for any fast balls, any slow balls. I'm ready for you this morning. So I got a lot of rest last night. So let's rock and roll.
So here's what I'm gonna say.
Cue it up.
I got my armor on.
Kevin, is it me or I just see Eric's shirt?
Don't worry about it, Vincent. Stay focused on the show.
Yeah, you don't worry about it.
Just stay focused on the show, right?
All right.
So, I got my my armor on. I got my hat. I was gonna put my sweatshirt on today, but I decided the hat would be enough because the Negro Whisperers might fall out their seat if I had the full armor on with my sweatshirt and everything. But everything that I look at now, I'm looking at through the lens of a descendant of slavery. Everything. I'm looking at it from a foundational Black American standpoint. Everything. I'm looking at it from the standpoint of seizing economic and political power. Everything. And so when I look at what's happening on a national stage, I am joyful. And we talked about this, Kevin, about Democratic Party imploding, absolutely imploding, and the corporation of white supremacy being caught off guard, and the fact that we had an uprising in the servants' quarters. All of it is happening, Kevin, all of it. And we saw it on full display over the last 2 weeks, starting with the so-called debacle over the poll that was coming out in Iowa that they never released. And then taking 3 or 4 days to finally release the results of the Iowa poll. And then last night, and then this morning with them reporting not about Bernie Sanders' victory, but about the number 5 candidate, you see, and the number 2 candidate. So we see very clearly what is going on at this point, and that is that the Democratic Party, those within the Democratic Party who pledge allegiance to themselves, are trying to hold on to power for themselves. And I tell you, man, I am so elated that you have a civil war going on within the Democratic Party. You have a civil war going on within the very households in the African American or foundational Black American communities. You have those young folks telling their parents who are older than them and their grandparents who are older than their parents, telling them, no, the way that you want to go is backwards. The pain and suffering that we're dealing with right now is too much for us to bear. We have not been socially engineered the same way that you have been, to tuck our tail between our legs and to just kowtow to the party. No, we're not Democrats first. I'm watching it, Kevin, and I am gleeful. I am so gleeful, Kevin. I'm telling you, man, they have... Go ahead.
Well, I saw something that was so. First of all, let me just say this, right? we called this months ago,
yeah,
and we got into a lot of back and forth with our buddies, the Informed class. But we called this. But one of the things I wanted to say this morning before I get started is that the Democratic Party has no compassion for Black folk. None. They have no compassion. Now, I don't want to tell you who told me that last night, but when they said it to me, I fell out of my chair because it was so real and it was so spot on. So let's just start there. The party that we give 100% of our power to, the party that we identified with before we even identified that we're Black Americans, really has no compassion for us. Because they talk to us about what they value, what we should value, what our partnership is, what they're committed to. They're not committed to anything we stand for whatsoever, the Democratic Party. They're sabotaging their process because they work for the oligarchs. They're sabotaging their process because they know if someone like Bernie Sanders or any person like that man becomes the nominee, that he will blow the establishment up. And they should be. They're pushing Klobuchar. They're pushing that other guy from Buttigieg. They're pushing all of these people in a narrative that's so false because coming out of New Hampshire, coming out of Iowa, we normally have 2 to 3 candidates, right, that are solid, that will go to the Super Tuesday, and we basically would know by now who the candidate's going to be moving forward, right? Mm-hmm. So they're still trying to hold Biden in line. He's done. But the thing that really gets to me, this is the thing that proves our point without a shadow of a doubt, that this party is corrupt and that Trump was absolutely spot on about the system that is rigged against you. He was right. Now, you don't like him. I don't like the guy. We talk about that all the time. We don't support him. But he's right. The system is rigged. And the Democratic Party, the party of the people, the party of the disenfranchised, really is a fraud. They're the party of the rich, and guess what? They will vote their interest over our interest any day. Now, if Black Americans don't get that, and you're still out there caping for a party that doesn't care about you, doesn't value you, and cannot demonstrate compassion towards you, well, guess what? Shame on your ass. Because the Democratic Party has clearly said, without a shadow of a doubt, they don't care about you. But let me, if you don't mind me staying on, because I told you I went to bed like 8 o'clock.
Yo, wait, share the show, people. This is going to be a hot one. Share it.
Share the show. So I've got, normally, you know me, I'm on 5 hours of sleep, 3 hours of sleep. So let me get back to this Bloomberg thing.
Oh, my God.
Bloomberg is anti-Black. The Democratic Party, based on its history, and based on our analysis, and based on what we see policy-wise, ready, everybody? Get comfortable, sit down, deal with the reality. They're anti-Black. And just because you see some pundits on there that are being paid by the oligarchs, that are being paid by the media to try to sell us maximum sophisticated confusion, those are the people that I keep saying to you that are inside the gate. Not the barbarians outside the gate. So let me give you a prime example. And I hate to use him as an example because, he's just sickening to me. But I had Al Sharpton on MSNBC, and there's a lot of other ones doing it. I'm just using him as an example. Al Sharpton on MSNBC today trying to cape for Bloomberg. Now, Bloomberg has proved to us without a shadow of a doubt what we've said about the Democratic Party, that is no different than the Republican Party, that the oligarchs, the deep state controls the party. We now know without a shadow of a doubt that Bloomberg owns the Democratic Party.
$350 million he's invested so far.
That's right.
And he's promised over $10 million. So let's give these facts.
And Eric, the other thing that we must say about Bloomberg is that he now, without a shadow of a doubt, owns the media. Yes. And what do I mean by that? He has invested in this media buy. He's funding their corporations with his media buy. He's funding them. So he controls the media, and he controls this individual now. I'm just saying, he's not the only one. He controls the media, and he controls the Democratic Party. So we can't go over there and say the Democratic Party is controlled by all white men when you talk about the Democratic Party being controlled by all white people. And then the black people that are in the Democratic Party surely they don't work for us. The people that are in the Democratic Party, the Senate and the Congress, and the people that represent that caucus at the state of in Washington does not represent us. So you had Bloomberg, you had Sanders, you had
Sharpton.
Sharpton on TV this morning taping for a guy that clearly, no matter, I wouldn't care what you say about it, he clearly does not have respect for black folk. He sees us as a problem. He saw us as a crime problem, even though he knew that everything that was told to him was that he was supposed to stop and frisk. And then when he went out and talked to the richest people in the world at the Aspen Institute, he said black people, black kids, black children are a problem. He's anti-black, and the Democratic Party supports him and continues to take his money. They're anti-black. And if anybody is out there caping for him that are black, they are slave catchers. They are slave catchers. They are Negro whisperers, and we need to get rid of them.
Here's the thing that I want to say. Come on, I'm gonna check you all right now. If the audio tape that came out yesterday had been an audio tape of Donald Trump, every single Democrat would have been screaming and hollering about how racist Donald Trump was. Fact. So you got to ask yourself, who reprogrammed you? Who reconditioned you? Who socially engineered you to deny what you heard as being anti-black and racist? See, because that's what you're doing now. I was all over social media yesterday, Kevin, and people were defending this. And I'm saying to myself, who socially engineered you? Who reconditioned your thinking? Who changed your perspective? So that when you heard it come out of Mike Bloomberg's mouth, because that's what they did. See, they reconditioned you so that when you heard the exact same words that you would have heard come out of Donald Trump's mouth, you would have called him a racist. And you would have given us every reason why we should not vote for him. But when it came out of Mike Bloomberg's mouth, the slave whisperers, the Negro whisperers, the slave catchers, all of them have done such a great job at socially engineering and reconditioning your thinking that you actually stood there and defended it. Think about that.
Well, Eric, you make a good point, Eric. I mean, but here's the deal. I am now subscribing to this term, and I'm going to stick with it. They are anti-black. The Democratic Party is anti-black. Bloomberg is anti-black. And guess what? That's what we should say about them. From this day forward, they're anti-black. Why? Look at his policies. Why? Look at his stance. Why? Look at the Democratic Party. Why? Look at what they're doing. Now, just take Bernie Sanders out of the equation. I think he said something very important to me this morning. And I'm going to paraphrase it as best as I can. So just take Bernie Sanders out of the situation right now. Just imagine if it was a woman or another person that came out of Iowa, New Hampshire, and might be progressive or might be different than the establishment. What the establishment is telling us is our way or the highway. So whoever would be fighting against the establishment, whoever will be fighting against the oligarchs like Bloomberg, they would tell us right now, but listen, they're going to tell us our way or the highway. So now, what we should be saying as black Americans is, guess what? We don't want to be on your highway. We don't want to be on your byway, because that institution, the institution that continues to keep selling us garbage as hope, is anti-black. Now, they got to defend that. They got to tell me why I'm wrong about that.
Well, I feel like the Statue of Liberty in a doubles tennis match with you two. However, I do agree with some points. And first and foremost, stop and frisk is against the law. It is totally against the law. It's been upheld in the Supreme Court, Terry versus Ohio, which stop and frisk is illegal because it violates their constitutional rights. People should not be stopped just because of where they are and the color of their skin, or even the type of car that they're driving. That is racial bias and profiling. Now, what Bloomberg is doing is backpedaling to defend his stance on stop and frisk. Now, keep in mind, and let me say something from the other side, play a little advocate here. Yes, New York has had a problem, but all states have had a problem. Now, they found stop and frisk to have some level of success, but yet the outrage of the minority is supported by the support of the people feeling safe in the majority. Now, and let's look at another thing that you said. Not Bloomberg and the media. He said that he owns the media, which is true. It affirms the cliche of the golden rule. He who has the goal makes the rules. Bloomberg is spending billions of dollars on his campaign. He has basically blocked out all kinds of time, all air slots, and he is now to the point where he is buying the election. You know, for X amount of dollars, you can buy just about anybody, any party support. And that's what's happening. Now, who is going to stop that? We are. Eric and I are running being anti-establishment. Eric and I are running based on the simple fact that we need to do something fundamentally right for the people. And what we have to do is remind the people that, you know, the power of the United States and our Constitution is every 4 years there's a change of power without one person firing a weapon. It's simply getting out there and voting. Let's get with some people who are tired of the lip service, who are tired of people talking to them one way, but when they get around their a la cartes who are supporting their campaigns, they say another thing. Tired of seeing people getting richer based on their political power and structure while you're getting poor. We need people who are going to do something like increase the minimum wage across the board to $15 an hour. We need people who are going to do something like reduce taxes to our seniors. We need people to do something like all of those table issues, like funding colleges. In fact, Donald Trump right now is about to repeal the Tuition Forgiveness Act. So we need some people to vote on people who are going to stand up to bringing that back. We're at the point now where we don't need to go backwards in our political. We don't need to go backwards in our economic equality. We don't need to go backwards in our reformative justice. We need leaders who are going to push us forward.
What we need are people who have courage, who are willing to go and fight to seize power. Make no mistake, what we've been seeing over the last week or so, well, actually, it's always been there, but the temperature has been turned up. See, they tried to keep it on a simmer, right? But now it's at a boil. They've always been working behind the scenes, pulling the strings to maintain their economic and political power. It's not by happenstance that 99% of the folks here and 13% out of 99% foundational Black Americans are suffering the way that they're suffering, right? But folks are communicating with each other through networks and programs like this. And they're saying, hey, listen, you're suffering, I'm suffering. Why are we fighting against each other? We need to turn our attention to those people who have their heel on our neck. And that's what's happening now. And so when Representative Ayanna Pressley says, hey, look, no more. We have to first identify that the people that we are voting for are going there with the sole purpose of representing us, not in skin tone, but in ideology. And
Correct.
If you are a Black person running as a Black person, not willing to represent a Black person, then get the hell out of the way. That's where we are. And that's where the focus needs to be. All the other things, once we seize power. See, because if you don't have it, then all it is dreaming about what I want to do. I want a 15-hour minimum wage. I want this. I want that. All of that is dreaming. The thing we have to do, we have to seize economic and political power. And the Democratic Party has said to us in no uncertain terms, it is going to be a bloodbath. They are not going to let it go. They're not going to relinquish it without a fight. And the billions of dollars that Bloomberg has pledged to pour into this, the deception that's happening in back rooms right now with Democrat leaders talking to Republican leaders about how they want to torpedo this movement of the people just to keep a little bit of power. What I'm understanding now is they're willing to broker a deal to say, look, we'll take anything you give us, Republicans, as long as we can still be at the table, as long as we can still be important, as long as we can still get some contracts and some jobs and stuff. We'll sell all of our people, all of those folks who pledged themselves to the Democratic Party. We'll sell them all under the river. And we'll put Trump back in office as long as you take care of us. Come on, people, wake up.
That does happen. The pragmatism of politics sometimes does not serve the needs of the people. The pragmatism of politics serves the needs of the a la cartes and the politicians.
Call it go.
And you're right. We need candidates with courage. You got to call her.
Call it go.
Oh, hey, good morning, gentlemen. I'm listening. I just tuned in, so I don't know your guest name, but Brother, you said something really interesting, and it just made my mind think. You said that every 4 years in this country there is a change of power, and it made me just think: is it truly a change of power every 4 years, or is it a change of guard? And like I'm listening to you guys, and it seems like all it really ever is a change of guard, but the power is always been left with that small group of people.
All it is a shifting of the mousetrap. That's it.
Exactly.
They shift the mousetrap, right? Because they figure, there are a couple people who are figuring it out. They know that we're tinkering and we're having these discussions, and then during those 4 years, they have their Negro whisperers and they have their slave catchers out there amongst us reporting back to them how we're viewing the mousetrap, and then they make the necessary adjustments to lull us back to sleep. But the corporation of white supremacy is caught off guard right now. There is a revolution, and it's being televised. Get on code, y'all.
That's true. If I could comment on the caller, there is a level of truth with that. Yes, we do change power. The problem that we're experiencing is that when we change the power, we go from sometimes the frying pan to the fryer. We elect people who don't have our interests in mind. They have the interests of their campaign supporters. They have the interests of the people who are paying the politicians to be elected. What we need to do is two things. One, vote on someone who can support our issues across the board. And we have a lot of issues. Number two, when they do get elected, remind them and hold them to their commitment, hold them to their promises, and hold them accountable to what they said to us. We get so many politicians who just at the end or coming to the close end of the race, they come into the black community and, hey, everybody, I'm your black candidate. Vote for me. And we blindly let them in office.
I'm going to say it again. I've been watching this presidential process, and I'm so happy people around me are talking about it and paying attention to it. And I'm very happy that people are lending their voice to a bigger narrative, because what you see on TV is maximum sophisticated confusion. So I'm happy that all three of us this morning, and the listeners and people that are talking, are paying a little attention, right? But I'm going to get back to my earlier statement. The Democratic Party has no compassion for black folk. We are just tools. We are just their commodity to their wealth, and we don't have any value because we don't have any power.
Excuse me, Kevin, why say the Democratic Party? Why not say United States of America?
No, can I say, well, I'm talking about, the reason I'm saying Democratic Party, and the reason I'm emphasizing that is because when they go out to vote, when my people go out to vote, and I'm trying to keep it right there, because we can have the bigger narrative, the bigger discussion, which you just outlined. What I'm saying to you is that this particular party, this particular group of people that come before you, and you all subscribe to it as a part of your identity, as a part of your lineage, which is not. Look, Farrakhan, black Americans can believe, and if you watch their pattern, that the Democratic Party is their lineage, as opposed to 1619, as opposed to being foundational black, or opposed to being American descendant of slaves. We actually connect our lineage to the Democratic Party. So that's why I'm talking about the Democratic Party, because I want to keep it in political space. I want to keep it in the presidential election space, and I want everybody to understand what they're seeing, what we've been saying, what you've been saying, Farrakhan. What you've been saying for we need to separate ourselves consciously so we can do what? Be able to do what Eric has been talking about for these last several months. Power, right, and economic power. Political power and economic power. Anything else the Democratic Party is talking to you about is what we would call maximum sophisticated confusion. And the Constitution, the word democracy, the word people, all of those things that they continue to sell us as garbage as hope, we got to stop purchasing.
Kevin, can I say something? Listen, Farrakhan, let me say this and then I'm going to let you go. I want you guys to understand this, because we're talking on a national level, but I keep telling you, if we're not blowing this thing up at the local level, these elected officials at the local level are supporting what is taking place on the national level. I'll give you an example. Let's look at Jersey City. Let's go back to Joan Terrell Page. What did they call that woman? They called her the face of hate. They said she was an anti-Semite. Those same people are caping for Mike Bloomberg right now. I say that again. The same people, same black electeds who called Joan Terrell Page a racist, an anti-Semite, in the face of hate because she was standing up for black people are the same black electeds who are right now caping for a guy who for 12 years brutalized and terrorized black people in New York. That's what's happening right now. And the fact that we don't stand up and kick them off the island, and listen, I'm not just saying me, you, Farrakhan, Vincent, and Kevin. I'm saying let's look at all the other black politicians that pay into this Democratic Party, that are part of upholding these standards, these low and brutal standards of the Democratic Party. You know, I posted yesterday, and this is all tied in. It's all tied in. I posted yesterday that Renee Baskerville, who's a councilwoman up in Montclair, is running for mayor. Now, I'm looking at the people that she's taking pictures with and posting, and I'm going, wait a minute. These are people who are caping for the same crap we're fighting against. You understand what I'm saying? They're all intertwined. They all gotta go. They're all diseased. They're all infected. We can't separate them at this point. It's a nasty, stinking stench. That comes.
You know, and Eric, to your point,
If I could, Farrakhan, and Farrakhan, oh, by the way, to the other caller, my name is Vincent Squire. But if I
I know you right now. I didn't hear your voice. I hadn't, but I remember you from coming on the show plenty of times, so I know exactly who you are.
Thank you. But you're absolutely right, Eric. And let's not even go to Jersey City. Let's look at the city of Newark. When Newark had a problem with the water, guess who was the mayor?
Right.
And he became Senate, and the problem still didn't go away. And running for president still has not addressed that same problem.
And wait a minute, and the guy who's currently mayor caped for him, covered up for him, lied for him. The governor, who's part of the same Democratic Party, like you said, Kevin, they are anti-black.
Anti-black.
They're all
anti-black.
anti-black.
Well, I won't say that they're anti-black as much as I will say that they're pro-establishment.
And listen, let me just say this to you. We don't need you cutting across our what we say. Vincent, if you're going to be on the show, listen, I'm going to joke. If you're going to be on the show, when we say they're anti-black,
they're anti-black.
You don't cut across the thing. Hey, wait. Let me tell you right now. I'm only teasing. I'm only joking. Let me finish.
Somebody give Vincent a glass of water.
I'm only joking. But let me just say this to you, Vince. Let me say this to you.
Yes.
Right now in the state of New Jersey, right now, they're all talking, the chairpersons of the Democratic Party across the state are saying they are not prepared. They are prepared right now, not prepared not to put a presidential candidate at the top of the ticket. Because they believe if it's Bernie Sanders, you ready for this? It will be a drag. I got to tell you this. This is phenomenal. It'll be a drag on the bottom of the ticket. The bottom of the ticket is already a drag. The black people, it is already a drag. The black people that represents us at the bottom of the ticket, they should all be kicked off the island because they don't work for us. All you have to do is look at the condition of their districts. Majority of the black Americans that are elected to the legislature at the state majority and the legislature at the national level, and people that are elected as council and freeholders, black people, all of their districts are poor.
True.
They're poor. So they are the best poverty managers and Negro whisperers and slave catchers on earth. Now think about it.
No, I think the slave term is called house in.
Okay, wait. Okay, so wait a minute. The Democratic Party.
He's on code now, Kevin.
He's on code now. The Democratic Party at the state is saying right now, Vincent, that you know what? We're not going to put ahead of the ticket. We're not going to pick a presidential candidate.
Right.
Now, that's what I'm saying. So when we talk about democracy, when we talk about the lack of compassion for black folk, so what they're saying to black Americans in New Jersey is that we're going to disenfranchise your ability to vote for president because we're saying we don't like that guy. Right. Or we don't like what he represents. So, of course.
Let's stay there for a second, Kevin. Let's stay there. So
Here's the thing. When your opponent is winning, you change the rule.
Right. But let's understand what he stands for. Let's understand what Bernie Sanders says he stands for. Right? They labeling him both on the Republican, on the establishment Republican side and the establishment Democrat side, they label him a communist and a socialist, right? Now, what I want to say to you is this, and I put this up on my page because I want you to understand how crazy it is. Quote, "This country has socialism for the rich and rugged individualism for the poor." That's a quote from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Now, these same Democrats who propped up Dr. King, celebrated Dr. King during his birthday, right? Had all of these different events. They didn't celebrate this Dr. King. They celebrated the I Have a Dream Dr. King. Because these same Negro whisperers would have been against Dr. King if he were alive right now. Because
you're right.
Because he believes this. See, so they would have been labeling these same people. I want you to understand this. This is why I'm saying, Vincent, they're anti-black. Because they would have, listen, they would have dismissed, they would have demonized, they would have radicalized, and then they would have continued to work to destroy Dr. King right now.
Of course. Here's the theory. First, here's the theory. They don't have a problem with the dream. They have a problem with the dream becoming a reality. The second thing is that black people have to realize, wake up, smell the coffee, or whatever it takes to understand. We don't have a voice as black people because the Democrats feel like they already have your vote. The Republicans feel like they'll never get your vote. So nobody is going to work in your interest if you don't stand up. If you do not be counted. Man,
I need somebody to tell me, though.
Can I be honest with you? Hey, Vincent, I'm getting ready to leave the show because black people aren't going to do anything. Let me finish. I'm just going to be honest with you. I'm just going to be as openly passionate as I possibly can. Okay. They're not going to do anything. You know why? Because you said something. Our voice, our vote. We don't own our voice and we don't own our vote. We don't have political power. We don't want political power. We don't want economic power. We don't want it because if we wanted it. What do you mean we? All of them want. Listen, no, I'm not talking about
the team,
you individually.
The team.
I'm talking about the team. I told you to stay on code. No, Vincent.
See, here's the problem. Here's the problem that everybody has with me. I don't stay on code.
Oh, no.
But yeah, I know. We're having fun. I'm loving this.
We're having a little bit of fun. So what I'm saying,
and here's the thing. Yeah. The political power is relatively simple. We can gain political power. We can gain economic power by first electing somebody in here who's going to start leveling the playing field. They keep changing the rules every time we reach a level of success.
Well, that's this country. When we were free and we were in Reconstruction, they changed it. Anytime we had laws to protect our citizenship, they changed it. And that's one of the things, though, that fascinates me about my people. There are some people that have some understanding of the dynamic of what's happening to us in this country, but all of them have been sold out. I mean, sold out for nothing. I mean, literally. I mean, when you really put it on the scale between the 1% and between the bottom percent, I call us the bottom percent. They're not getting anything. Yeah. They're not advancing anything. So, if you want real power, you have to advance your people. So that's what I'm saying to you. The Democratic Party, right, has no compassion for Black Americans. I want you to remember that. True. They have no compassion for you.
They have no compassion. They don't have a plan. Listen, they don't have any compassion. They don't have a plan. They didn't feel they needed a plan. All they felt they needed to do. This is the level of contempt. So not only a lack of compassion, but a whole lot of contempt.
I like that.
Right?
I like that.
A whole lot of contempt. Because all they felt they needed to do, Kevin, we called this so early. When we were looking at Rachel Maddow caping for the establishment, right? She kept pumping every single day, Russia, 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 because they were socially engineering. Understand, they were socially engineering black folk. They were preparing those older black folk down in South Carolina. They said, you know what, we got to start early on this firewall.
Because now, but wait a minute, they have people on TV now They have black Americans, so-called black Americans. I don't know what they are because I'm not even identifying. As we move down the line, I think I got to come up with a different name for them. That's really crazy, so people can really. Oh God! They have people right now saying that they're setting it up that if black people don't vote, we're going to be responsible.
Oh, it's all our fault, Kevin.
That's what they're saying.
It's going to be all our fault.
If black folk don't, wait a minute. Hey, Vincent, this is what they're saying. I'm going to let you, I don't mean to cut it short. They're saying that if we don't vote, black folk, if we don't vote, if we don't go out to vote, we are going to be what? Responsible for Trump winning.
Well, let's look at the truth of it. The responsibility of Trump winning the last election was the white women voters from the age of 30 to 47. But if we can go back to one of the big reasons that they're issuing so much hate on Bernie Sanders is because he's looking at leveling the playing field in our environment.
Vincent.
Hold on. Let me finish.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's right. See, when people are starting to be a threat to the establishment, that's when they get called.
Here we go.
He gets called a socialist. He gets called a communist. The true meaning of socialism is this. Now, socialism is basically designed when a private corporation is doing well, the government takes over it. That's not what we're experiencing with Bernie Sanders. What he's saying to you is this. We have multi-billionaires who pay less than 0.1% of their wealth in taxes. And we have the, as they say, pull yourself up by the bootstrings, the working class America, who pay virtually 23% of their taxes. That playing field needs to be level.
Listen, you're in the weeds on this, right? What he's saying is this. If you look around, you have socialism taking place every day. Every time you have a corporation, right, that gets a tax break, when you had the bailout of Wall Street, when you had the bailout of the auto industry, that was socialism. So he's saying, look, he's saying,
no. Socialism or corporate welfare?
It was corporate socialism. It was corporate socialism. Listen, we got 2 calls on the line. I don't know who they are, but let's try to get one at a time. Call or go.
When we take the callers, don't interrupt them. So go ahead.
Okay.
Good morning, fellas. How you doing today?
Good
Doing
morning.
well. What's going on, Will?
I'm doing well, my brother. Hey, Kevin, what's up, man? How you doing today, man?
What's up, Will? How you doing, man?
Yo, Vincent, what's up, man? Listen, you know I'm gonna start. You know how I'm gonna start it, Kevin? Okay, you guys are always attacking the Democrats. So hear me out now. Bernie Sanders won last night. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, congratulate them. Okay, we have to look at the overall picture. Okay, since this guy 45 has been in the White House, he's shut the government down. He's trying to take people's health care, the Affordable Care Act. Okay, he's proposing in April taking the SNAP benefits away from thousands of Americans. Okay, well, you know, it's okay to put them back to work. That's fine, but you have to have some social programs like Eric was saying, social programs, back to work programs, okay. I believe our Governor Murphy is fighting right now in court to block him from, taking away millions of dollars in SNAP benefits away from New Jerseyans. And I feel that, that's my issues that I have this morning with you guys. But overall, we just have to find the right candidate to run against the Republican Party, because there's a lot of issues on the table, such as, health care, jobs, for inner city people. And we just have to come together as a united group.
Right. Look, can I say this to you? So listen, and we have to look in the fine print of the SNAP benefit stuff, all the other things, right? And we need to,
because these people, in reference to the SNAP benefits, they need this. Families such as the Newark, East Orange, Irvington, and the surrounding inner cities need these programs.
Will, listen to what I'm saying. I disagree with you. I'm asking you to listen to what I said. I heard what you said. So what I'm saying is this: we need to be smart about it, right? Because there are some things that are wrong with those programs, right? We got to look at them. On a whole, I say that people who need help, right? But there are people who are scamming the system. They've always scammed them. I've known people all my life who've been in these different programs and they scam them. We need to tighten up the regulations in those areas, and we need to identify the people who actually need them, and we need to give them to them. But we need to have some sort of incentive to get people off of them. Generation after generation shouldn't be on it, and that's what we need to be focusing on. But when I say to you that we're in hospice, what I mean by that is this: generation after generation, these folks are in pain. But the Democratic Party is not interested in creating economic and political power by way of fighting for it. What they want to do is they want to service the symptom. So the symptom is, or the service of the symptom is, I'm going to give you some SNAP benefits. I'm going to give you more of these programs. And I'm saying, well, where is the off-ramping of the program? Are we looking at that data that says, well, from this year to this year, the Democratic Party has moved these number of people off of these programs? No, because it doesn't benefit them.
I totally agree with that. In the system in Essex County, I had a friend of mine experience, there were long lines on 50 South Clinton Street, long lines on Rector Street, and it's sad. I mean, it's unfortunate, and you were right. I mean, we have to weed off the people that need help to get them some type of programs. Governor Murphy today in the Star Ledger, the state pledged $6 million to combat teen suicide. That's another thing in reference to our young people,
but again,
and that's some of the social issues that we're experiencing right now.
But Will, that is another symptom. So when we look and say, well, why do they commit suicide? Let's get to the root of it. Let's rip out the cause. You understand what I'm saying? But the Democratic Party, because they manage poverty so well, all they do is run to the symptom.
Hey, can I say something there? Let me let Vincent talk. Go ahead, Vincent.
Correct. And see, in France, when they had their revolution, it started because of the same thing. There was poverty, and someone came up to the queen, and they said to her, listen, the people in the streets are poor. They have no bread to eat. You know what our response was? Let them eat cake.
I think we have another caller. Do we have another caller?
I'll let you guys go, my brother. Take care. Bye-bye.
Hey, Will.
All right.
Thanks, Will.
All right.
Do we have another caller?
Yes, we do. I just want to say, can we stop giving Bernie Sanders credit for something that he's not even trying to do? I heard Vincent say Bernie Sanders is trying to level the playing field. Bernie Sanders isn't trying to level the playing field. What Bernie Sanders is doing is he's trying to make it equal. And by doing that, because if he levels the playing field, right, it does nothing for us to have a level playing field or equal playing field if I'm already behind. He's not doing anything that's going to advance the people that's behind.
Okay, so
and that's why I heard. Let me finish. Let me finish. Right, by what he wants to do, he wants to say, well, let's give everybody free college education. I don't have a problem with that, except that my people have already been underqualified to go to college.
Right.
So all you're doing is making the people that are qualified, right, those that have already had the privilege, they're going to get an easier route to it. While myself, I'll get an easier route for something I'm not qualified for yet.
Right.
So now I have to qualify. So I ask you this: what is his plan to correct the elementary education of the inner city? He don't have one.
Right. So wait. I'll let you finish.
He doesn't have a cure for the black person.
Right.
That's why I say stop voting for him.
Okay. So now I'll let you talk. Right. So let me say this.
Okay. Go ahead.
Let me say this. So we have to stop asking people to do stuff that we're not willing to do for ourselves. So when I say that there's no black elected that we have in any of these inner cities that has the plan that you just asked Bernie Sanders, who's running for president, to have, I say shame on all of us. See, because if we had done that work, if we had done the work on our blocks, in our neighborhoods, in our communities, we would have, let me finish now.
Okay.
Right? We would be able to go to him and say to him, hey, listen, this vote, 94% that we give to the Democratic Party, right? We're not going to give it to the Democratic Party. We got a copious plan that we've worked out from our street level all the way up to our governor's mansion. And we're going to push this through to you. We got our congressmen on board. We got our U.S. senators on board. We got our state senators on board. We got our assembly, our freeholders. We got our mayors and our council people on board. Here it is. We don't have anybody on board, but we're asking that guy to have a plan. Are you kidding me? So for me, all I'm interested right now in is tearing down the system. So if he's willing to take a sledgehammer to the system, I say that's good enough for me right now. And then I'm going to work within my community. I'm going to work within the council, the mayors, the senators, the Congress to change those things.
No, I mean, you don't believe in reparations, but wait. No. Let me.
Now, go over Eric's statement. He doesn't believe in reparations. Now, I know that's not the case, but going by your statement, reparations isn't necessary.
No, that's not what I said. You missed everything I said. See, what I'm saying is this.
You just said you don't want nobody to do it for us. It's what black folks should do for themselves. So if that man, like y'all have been saying, levels the playing field, it's on black folks to catch up. That's what you're saying.
No, what I'm saying is this. No, that's not what I'm saying. So I'm going to say it again. What I'm saying is this. Tear the system down. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. So while the system, because I'm gonna ask you this, we got a Board of Education election coming up in Newark, right? Are we doing the work that we need to be doing here? No, we're sitting here talking about that guy doing something for us. We just elected in 2018 a mayor in the city of Newark. We elected the mayor up in Irvington, the one in East Orange. They're going to try to elect this woman in Montclair that don't have black people's interests in. They're not trying to fight for economic and political power. And we continue to elect them, and we don't protest against them. We don't lie. They lied to us about the water. All of these things, and we're not standing up. But then we want to go and look at the TV and say, but that white guy over there should be doing the work that we're not doing here. Are you kidding me? You're saying to me, oh, does he have a plan, an education plan? But we don't show up when our kids are being miseducated in our schools. But we want that guy to have a plan. Stop it.
Absolutely.
No.
Absolutely.
No.
He has to have hold up, brother. He is going to appoint the Secretary of Education, who will then put an agenda that goes to the local.
Listen,
right? It goes to state,
we're conditioned to settle for less, but we always want more as long as somebody else is willing to fight for it.
Come on, Eric. You cannot say that. Now, again, okay, the problem is that you're now saying that we should have, in the system that is destroying us, figured out how we should create the cure for us, so that when somebody wants to destroy that system, we can now administer the cure. Right? That's what you're just basically saying.
No, it's not what I'm saying.
What he's saying is
what I'm saying. You're not. Hey, listen.
Hey, listen. We got to
rewind the show and listen to it because that's not what I said.
Let Vincent talk, and then we can. Maybe we can get some confirmation. What Eric is saying is this: yes, we can ask for a man to have a plan, and that's fine. But the biggest thing that we have to do is be prepared for that plan. We can't ask a man to give us free college when we don't work with our children to make sure that they can read. We cannot ask for someone to give us health care when we do not go to the doctor. We have to do our part as well. We cannot ask people to do everything for us. That's what he's saying. He's saying
we're going to push back against that a little bit.
What he's saying right now is the main thing that we have to look at is our level of accountability. We have people in power that we have elected who are doing nothing.
Yes. And let's see how we show up for those elections. So while we're sitting here and want to hold him accountable, I got you. But I'm saying, let's see how many black electeds we hold accountable. None. We're not going to hold any of them accountable, but we're going to sit at that guy, just like we look at Trump, and we want to hold them accountable for our situation. But in our communities, the district leaders, the council people, the mayors, the assembly people, the state senators, the guy who sits up there in the West Ward in Newark who does nothing and just runs and runs and runs, nobody asked him for a plan. Nobody asked Cory Booker for a plan. Nobody asked Raz Baraka for a plan. Nobody asked Kent Green for a plan. Nobody asked Tony Voss for a plan. Nobody asked Dwayne Warren for a goddamn plan. But we want to sit and ask the guy who's running for 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue for, are you kidding me? I just want him to blow it up.
Hey, Farrakhan. He must have real serious juice in that.
But now, here's the funny thing. But we'll hold Barack Obama to a different standard.
No,
same standard.
No. Well, so it's a show. Come on now. Because Barack Obama...
Let's let Tom finish this point.
Because we speak on that man as, he didn't have... Listen, if black folks didn't have a plan when he was in office, how can we knock him for his lack of performance?
We did.
Well, that's what I'm saying. How do we knock him for his lack of performance for black folks when we just said black folks hadn't prepared themselves for whoever was in office?
Listen, see, here's the thing. Not only have they
I know. Listen, we gotta have to take a commercial break and answer that
I'm
question.
hearing crickets right now from the three.
You know why I'm not saying anything? You know why I'm not going to say anything? Because at the end of the day, when we look at what's happening in the presidential election, when we look at what I just said earlier, that, the Democratic Party has no compassion for black folk, all of the stuff that we talk about, everything all of you said, I can say I agree with it, right? But here's the deal. I'm going to say it one more time. If you look at every black city in America, if you look at every black ward in this city, or black, where black leadership is supposed to be thriving and their people are supposed to be doing better, they're all living in poverty. And they're living in poverty because black Americans, if you want to say they don't have a plan, if you say they don't want to shame the devil and tell the truth, if you want to say that, but what I'm saying to you is, listen, at the end of the day, black Americans are directly, now when I say this, I want to put it in context. I can go chapter and verse on every policy that has had an adverse and negative impact on us. And guess what? Majority of those policies were created by who, Eric? Created by who, Vincent? Created by Democrats.
Right.
Now, I'm an investor in the Democratic Party. I've gotten Democratic governors elected. I've gotten Democratic mayors elected. I have raised money for them, so I can talk about them all day. I got a box full of receipts that I've given the Democratic Party. Okay. So I can talk about them. So now, you said something about Barack Obama, and let's take Barack Obama, let's take him on, because you brought him in this discussion. He had a bigger responsibility to deal with our community.
Oh my damn!
Let him finish. That's my point. I mean, you can say anything.
That was just my theatric, John. No, that was just my theatric.
Let him finish. Go ahead, Ken. No, Farrakhan knows me. Farrakhan knows you well. So go ahead, Farrakhan. Go and see what you're going to say. Go ahead.
No, I'm just going to say, now we're going to say the black man had a bigger responsibility.
You know why? You know why? Because 90% of the people that voted for him had hope for real radical change for their lives, because they said if they put a black man
right there, but I'm gonna let you finish.
Let me say what I'm telling you.
I'm gonna let you finish.
They said that if you put a black man in office, he will understand the black condition. He did. He did understand the black condition. We're going to go where we are. He never did anything to rejuvenate the urban centers of this country, and he transferred $2 to $4 to $5 trillion to another group of people. And guess what? He was quite comfortable with it. So now he does. As a black man, as a black male, as a black human being, I have a sacred responsibility when black folk put me in charge of their lives, like in Newark, to be able to do what? Not be corrupt. Tell the truth, make sure that our people in these communities are economically empowered and politically empowered, and guess what? None of that is happening. So I hold him to another. Okay.
Wait, Farrakhan, we're gonna take this commercial. Farrakhan, hold it. We're gonna take this commercial. When I come back, we're gonna take.
Since we're talking about Barack Obama,
we're gonna take this commercial. When I come back, we're going to continue the conversation.
Hey, Farrakhan, don't leave, Farrakhan.
You have loss prevention or safety concerns? Black seatbelt security and investigations as armed and unarmed guards that can protect what is important to you. For security you can count on.
It's time to turn up the heat in your house or apartment. So here are some fire safety tips from Diane L. Murray Insurance Agency to keep you warm and safe this winter. Don't overload your electrical outlets. Keep flammable items away from fireplaces and space heaters. And put a fresh battery in your smoke detector. Turn to Diane L. Murray Insurance Agency for your home and renter's insurance, or bundle it with your auto insurance and save. Call 908-686-4609 or visit dlminsurance.com today.
BBSI. BBSILLC.com.
Gotta listen. Everybody on listening
guys,
to us.
we're back.
All right, Farrakhan. Let me let you turn that off. Vincent, you go do what you gotta do.
Okay. Well, since you wanted to put percentages in there, like
Go ahead. Farrakhan, you go, Farrakhan. No, let Farrakhan go, then you go, Vincent.
Okay. So if Barack Obama had agreed to 90% of the people that put him in there, then that's like saying, doesn't Phil Murphy have a duty to the 94% that put him in there? See, we talk about double standards sometimes, right? Now, we cannot sit up here and say that a man like Barack Obama had a sacred duty, and I believe he would, and I've always said this, right? He would have done his duty if black folks had done their duty. Now, y'all just told me that black folks have a duty to do something before Bernie Sanders gets in the office, so that when he levels the playing field and blows it up, that black folks can come with their plan.
You're right.
Now, black folks didn't do that for Barack Obama. So we hold Barack Obama to a different standard. I'm saying that is in itself wrong. And then on top of that, now here's the whole problem. And this is my last thing I'm going to say about it. I'm going to hang up and let y'all talk. I'm going to say this. We have to stop sending good black people to the mousetrap. Because the mousetrap is the problem. When you get to that corrupting mousetrap, then we look and say, well, look at what they doing. They ain't doing nothing.
Right.
We got to stop sending them there.
Well,
we got to stop sending black folks to something that ain't no good and separate.
Right. So that's what's happening right now, Farrakhan. So the idea of destroying the mousetrap, I agree with you. So right now, the mousetrap is being destroyed, and then simultaneously, you have Representative Ayanna Pressley saying, you know what? While we're destroying this mousetrap, we don't want any more black faces without black voices coming up. And then we're also having a conversation that's saying, hey guys, we have a responsibility within our communities too, to make sure that as the mousetrap gets destroyed, as we start to separate the wheat from the chaff, that we are now doing our part. So all three of those things are happening right now. This is exactly what I'm talking about. I agree 100% with what you just said.
Now, if I could, now, one of the things that a lot of people don't give Barack Obama credit for is, in fact, 2 quick points. First and foremost, on Barack Obama's first term, he was making a lot of moves, a lot of changes, and a lot of bills. What stopped that was his midterm. Black people did not stand up and vote because it wasn't a presidential. So we got a lot more Republicans in there. Henceforth, killing just about every bill that he had that supported the black. Hold on, let me finish. That supported the black people. The bill for $260 million to historically black colleges is sitting on Mitch McConnell's desk. The bill giving credit to blacks who are achieving in school. That bill is stuck on Mitch McConnell's desk. And here's the other thing. If Barack Obama was the underachiever, as most of those white Americans and Republicans said he was, why is Donald Trump taking credit for 80% of his work?
Man, let me stop you for a second, man, because you done punched me in my mouth 4 times.
My bad.
Well, look, I ain't got no more teeth left in me. I told you I like to stick and move, baby. Stick and move. So let's just back up for a second, because every time we get on this Obama train, I think people kind of I get confused. Okay. Mm-hmm. So we know about the mousetrap. We know that the mousetrap is being reconfigured to stop people right now. People, no matter if you like Bernie or matter who do you like, but the majority of the people in this country are saying, we don't like what's going on. We are detached from your politics, and it's not benefiting us. That's the majority of the people in the country. The majority of people are saying, none of you people are speaking for us. True. Right? They're choosing somebody else. They're choosing the oligarchs. They're choosing all those others. So, okay, let's put a sticker pin in that. So let me go back to Barack Obama. And let's go back about the system. Barack Obama operated within the system, and we have every right to criticize him based on what we think that he didn't do and what he couldn't do or how he did it, because that's how we judge presidents since I've been born. Right? Okay, so fine. So the racial wealth got bigger. The transfer of wealth got bigger. The black condition in the black neighborhoods got worse, right? He propped up, wait a minute, the radical change agent that he was, he propped up this democratic system where he knew, as a community organizer and as a conscious person, that guess what? He had to do something to shake the system up. So he just didn't figure that out, that the mousetrap was working against him when he got there. But when he got there, he had a Democratic Congress and a Democratic Senate that worked against him. Democrats, right? Democrats. So then you brought up another issue. You talked about education, right? Well, black people forgave him for being a charter school expansion leader, because he expanded charter schools in this country. And guess what? Nobody challenged him on it, and he was the father of expansion. But I agree with charter. Look, I'm not against charter schools. I have what reason to be suspect of them now, but at the time I understood the concept of competition, and I understood that. So I get that. But he's the father of charter schools. Now, Arnie Duncan, you mentioned something about the bill being on McConnell's desk. I don't know where we went with that one, but it was Barack Obama that took the gap funding away, not by an act of Congress, not an act of Senate. He allowed Arnie Duncan to take that gap funding away from kids at HBCUs. That hurt them. He did that. Not to go on and on and on. Now, I'm not suggesting that he's a bad human being. I'm just suggesting that his politics, his mechanics didn't benefit us whatsoever, because the Republicans made a crazy fool out of him. He could not operate within that system, and then did benefit us. Can't you just appreciate the fact that we have done some assessment, we've analyzed that 8 years, and guess what? We got zero return for investment. Now, to Farrakhan's point about the 94%. He is absolutely right. Right now in the state of New Jersey, 94%, including Kevin Jenkins, voted, right, for someone in the Democratic Party, this governor, and we got zero returns. So I'm saying as an investor, I'm saying to you, our return on investment is zero, so I can't make the same goddamn business decision I made the last time. I got to say, listen, folks, we made a mistake. Listen, folks, we need to evaluate our power and our politics and how we vote. Listen, folks, we can't wait another day. We can't wait another week. We can't wait another second. So we can go around talking about the mechanics and all of that, but we are dying every day because we don't want to tell the truth. Right. Now, I said we don't want to tell the truth. I got to changes.
So,
I got a point. So can I ask one question for all three of you to answer? Do you believe that white people in this country will accept equal or equality or a level playing field with black America? Do you believe that? I would like to know each of you guys' answer.
You go first, Kevin. Then you go.
Shall I?
Yeah, of course. Answer the question.
Okay, I'm going to honestly tell you.
Don't answer the question. Don't give me yes or no.
We don't want a political answer, man. Yes or no?
Yes or no?
I'm going to give you my honest answer. We're going to run into some pushback with a level playing field. There are some white people who just cannot stand the fact that a person of color is advancing. Now, yes, That being said, it's not up to them. Or as my dad says, what he eat don't make me poop. Right. I don't care if he doesn't like it. As long as I got my shop to expand. That's what I care about.
So listen, my answer is yes, there's going to be pushback.
As long as my child can grow up on a level playing field where they can match their skills with someone else's skills and perform better and get the credit for it, I don't care if they don't like it.
Right.
I got it.
So, Farrakhan, yes, there's going to be pushback. There's pushback now. Every time that we're conscious and we talk consciously about the issues that impact us and how we got in the situation that we got in, there's pushback. And because for them, there's a natural order, right? And we're disturbing that natural order. So yes, there's going to be a pushback. However, what we need to do is handle our business. And we can see the key performance indicators in our own communities. So every time you don't hold a board member to task, you don't hold a district leader to task, you don't hold a council person and a mayor and a senator, and you don't hold those people to task, then we're 1, 2, 20, 50 steps further away from seizing political power. So we can't skip the fact that we've abdicated our own responsibility and then look at the situation at hand. We have to look at the fact that we've abdicated our responsibility. Let's start there. So forget, like Vincent said, forget about what white folks think. Let's show up at the next board meeting. Forget what white folks think. Let's show up at the next election. Forget about what white people think. Let's hold the mayor of Newark accountable for lying to people and putting their lives at risk for this dirty water. Let's start there. That has nothing to do with black people. That's our own business in our own houses, and we're not taking care of it. Call a go.
Well, hello.
Call a go.
Farrakhan.
Hey, I came in late on the show. Quick question about your guest. Say his name again and what
Vincent
is he running
Squire.
for?
He's running for U.S. Senate as a Democrat.
Oh, okay. Just to Farrakhan's point, when you ask the question of equality to what? I mean, we speak the
equality to their lives. Equality to their lives. Are they ever going to sit back and allow black folks to have exactly what they have or greater? Will they ever be the second head on the totem pole? And if that's not the case, if you do not believe that, that's got to be our number one focus. How do we deal with what they're going to do in response? Because I'm saying to y'all that with all that has been said on this show today, the one fact, they are not going to accept it, so they are going to, while they are still currently in power, because they know they might have to, for optics, make it seem like they're giving up something. But what are they really doing? Because we've seen it before, right? We saw it before in Brown versus the Board of Education. We saw it before in the Civil Rights Act of 63 or 64, whatever it was. We saw that the United States of America prepared itself for the day it would allow black people to have something. And it prepared itself in a manner in which it could stay where they wanted to be, which is at the top of the totem pole.
Brother let the other caller talk. Yeah, I have something to say because I waited to let all
Mike.
You did.
I'm going to be quiet.
Mike.
They when people talk in those terms, I pause because we have to be concerned when we want the same thing they got over there. This is not what politics is. All politics are local, and all policy has a social effect. And when you start talking about weaning people off of these systems that are set up, these systems were never set up for us. They were set up for people who they wanted to have a social effect, or they didn't. The poor white folks. Those systems were set up for them. They only have a problem when a few black people get on it. Statistically, because statistical in nature of where we are, when it comes to policy, we don't have no real, we're not a real drain on the system. It's the people who are on these systems. They point at us to say, okay, we got to get these people off, but meanwhile they're voting against their own interests because they're wiping out these policies for them as well.
Right.
So, I mean, as far as, I'm jotting stuff down as I'm riding, so I'm all over the place. But so,
hey, no distracted driving, man.
I appreciate it. With Obama, his approach was he didn't have to pander to us. We were, once, white folks said it was okay, we jumped on board, so he didn't have to pander to us. And his policy, like Kevin said, you know what I mean? He straightened out the mortgage crisis, but it was at the point where all our wealth was in those houses, and we got wiped out. You know what I mean? So the money it wasn't like he turned around and gave us all the money that we lost on our houses, that the banks and all of these fraudulent policies came up with to make us lose our our houses. But all right, we're gonna straighten it out. You can stay there, whatever.
Well, Carla, you bring up a very good point, and I think the problem when we have conversations like this, a lot of people aren't really reading this stuff. Like, for instance, if you, we're not reading. So if you really want to talk about the black condition, here's two things right now. So let me end with your Baraka statement. Not Baraka, but Obama's statement. Obama could have done one thing that you didn't even have to be a rocket scientist to figure out. He could have said, now that we're going to act as socialists and bail out the super rich, we're going to act as socialists and we're going to bail out the super poor. And what he could have done was real simple. He could have legally reset everybody's mortgages, right? Reset them all. And guess what? The economy would have boomed.
Right.
He did. He sat in a room with a bunch of rich oligarchs, and they were defending their position that they didn't do anything wrong. That's why nobody went to jail. They were defending their policies and saying, now that we screwed up, now that we created another bubble, we need you to fix it. We need you to bail us out. And here's a guy that said he was coming in to be radical and he said, the change we need, and he did nothing for Middle America. He abandoned it.
Right.
And you know what? You can't sit here and tell me because he's black, I need to be satisfied with that. Like I'm saying, I'm not going to be satisfied with these black local officials that are acting as Negro whispers as a slave catcher.
So now
I got to call him out now. That's not to suggest that I'm not going to call out Bush Jr. for his wars. I'm not going to call. We've done that already.
Right.
Now we're saying as black folk, we got a bigger problem.
Yeah.
But let's deal with the two things, though, that I wanted to add to this discussion.
And then when you're done with this, I want to move on. Go ahead.
You guys have a good day.
Thank you. Go ahead.
All right, bro.
Oh, Farrakhan asked a question, and I hope I'm going to answer the question. Because we've moved on from it, I think. But racial wealth gap and reparations. If anybody, and I got to tell you something, I don't care about all those other subscriptions, but for black Americans, the number one impact on us right now is the fact that we have a racial wealth gap in this country that's going to wipe us out. Now, that's one thing that we can deal with as a group of people. Anybody that disqualifies that is a fool. Right? Okay, number two is reparations. And let me tell you, just like that transfer of wealth is happening under Trump, just like that transfer of wealth is happening under Obama, just like it did all of the other presidents, that transfer of wealth is staggering now. And if we don't deal with the issues of reparations for black Americans, forget about 2053, let's talk about 2024. Right. And we got to say, it goes back to what we are interested for ourselves. And anybody that's black, they're selling you any other subscription, prescription, or any other reality is your enemy.
Right.
Now, I'm going to sit back again and listen.
Now, all of that can only occur through political power. Now, I want to address a statement. And, this is from the former mayor of Orange. And I texted him to let him know that I was going to reply to his statement regarding Mike Bloomberg.
He said something to you?
Yeah, in a thread.
Oh, I didn't know. Okay.
No. So I'm going to read the statement and then I'm going to reply. I'm going to respond to it. This is regarding us talking about caping for Michael Bloomberg and what Stop and Frisk did, how it terrorized and brutalized black people, how it left emotional scars that we'll never see and never know the full effect of. But this is what Eldridge Hawkins Jr. said, former mayor of Orange. He said, regardless of your position on stop and frisk, recognize that if a large amount of crime is happening in urban communities that happen to be more heavily minority-based, and the decision is made to deploy police resources where most of the crime is, the inevitable result is more minorities in handcuffs. That's just simple math. The key is deploying other techniques such as education and job creation to stem the tide of urban decay and turn our communities around. Arrests are important, but there are other ways to fight or prevent crime before it occurs. Now, see, I 100% agree with that. However, because we're never fighting for political power, we're fighting for seats. What winds up happening is we wind up with black faces who don't have black voices, and so the policies that need to change to improve education, to create real job creation, to create opportunities, all of those things are wiped away. And then what they do is they just address the symptom. Like Farrakhan said, he said, you know the reason crime is down in the city of Newark? Because they arrested them all. He said they locked them all up. He said, go down those blocks. But but this is serious business, right? So that's what they did. They locked them all up. But they're going to all get out at some point, right? And then the ones who are coming through these factories of death are going to be on those streets. And so it perpetuates itself. You see, so when we say that the Democratic Party, because that's what's here in New Jersey and Essex County, that all they're doing is managing poverty, that all they're doing is addressing the symptom, and they lack the courage because of a lack of political power, because they have not properly and truly addressed and engaged the electorate for fear of waking the electorate up, right? We wind up with what we wind up with. And then they say, you know what? When it reaches critical mass, and then the people start complaining about the crime, what we're going to do is we're going to lock them up and say that's what you asked for. That's not what we asked for. We asked for power. We asked for opportunity. We put you there to do that. So when the schools are still failing, when we have high unemployment rates, when we have high poverty rates, that's on you. And don't give us the prescription that you're going to lock us up. Like I said, when you say, and all of them say this, I'm a lower crime, I'm going to do this, I'm going to get them to put their guns down. Until you give them something of greater or equal value, what is the impetus? What is the motivation for them to put their guns down?
The Democratic Party has no compassion for black people. They are anti-black. I'm a Democrat. I was a Republican all my life. I left the Republican Party because of Trump. That was my protest, right? I became a Democrat. I've invested in both parties. Both parties are what? Absolutely opposed to black what? People. Now, I get that. I understand it. But I want to know, do you understand it? Does the informed class member really understand that they don't work for you? So if you don't start to work for yourself, that means you have what? No value. That means you have no principles. That means that you are all right and comfortable with giving your vote and your power to a group of people that do not represent you. But the reason that I stay focused on the Democratic Party, because when you deal with the issue of reparations, when you deal with the issue of the racial wealth gap, when you deal with the issue about failing schools in our cities, and you deal with all of these other the systemic racism, all of it, for the last 50 years, we've given our vote to a party that is not trying to deal with those issues. Every time black people are bringing up these issues that directly impact them, they get us focused on universal health care. Yeah. They get us focused on paying back college tuition. Well, if you pay back Billy's college tuition, that's going to be more transferable wealth for him. If you pay back Jamel's tuition, he's still trapped in poverty because you haven't dealt with the systemic racism and the racial policies that have destroyed this young man's and this young woman's future. Yep. So we are in constant battle, not just with the system, but we have to wage a war with our own community and the people that are operating and caping for the system. Absolutely. That's what Malcolm said. That's what Martin said. That's what all of them said. But guess what? We are now prepared to call them liars because we're still subscribing to failure. Where every time they open up their mouths that to say something opposite than what we're saying, that means they're calling Du Bois a liar.
Absolutely.
They're calling Washington a liar. They're calling them all a liar.
Right.
So now you're calling the great men that you talk about and the great women that you talk about every day a liar if you're saying that we're lying to you.
Absolutely. Caller, we got another caller. Caller, go.
If I could.
One second, Vincent. Caller, go.
Oh, no, Vincent can go. I just wanted to say something right. So go ahead, Vince.
Yeah, Vincent.
You guys are going to be totally shocked because I agree with Kevin 100%. And to add to what he's saying, what we need to do is, as black people, stop sitting up here whining, crying, scratching, and crawling for a seat at the table and come to the realization that we have the votes. We can own the table.
Oh, man, black people don't want to own nothing. We want to be the commodity that's wealth. We don't want to own. Listen, let me tell you, you talking about
we haven't been conditioned to own anything. So see,
really?
No. Wait,
No. I will not accept that because let's look at this. 1837 in the state of New Jersey, there were 40,000 free black men and women. There were 20,000 enslaved. We are conditioned to black empowerment.
Kevin,
what we've done is went through schematic beat down, and as they said, the ball and chain. We stopped realizing that there's no ball and chain. The only thing that's truly stopping us right now is us. Like Eric said, when we start holding these people accountable, we have changed. Like you said, Kevin, when we stop sitting up here bellyaching, whining, and crying about the establishment, and work towards getting people in there to represent us. Black, white, Republican, Democrat, Independent, I don't care. Vote for somebody who's going to...
Hey, Vincent, listen. This show...
That's what I get for going on cold and agreeing with you. And I'm agreeing with you, too.
Listen. I'm agreeing with you, too, buddy. I'm agreeing with you. Go ahead.
We have to keep it all in context, right?
Okay.
So the things that are occurring right now occurred when Martin was alive, right? They dismissed him, they demonized him, they discredited him, they radicalized him, and they destroyed him, right?
True.
So the things that we see happening now with black folks who are doing constructive things, the same thing happens. So these Negro whisperers and these slave catchers, they've been around for a long time. The second thing is this. The other two books that we went through here, The Miseducation of the Negro, is real. You see, the other book that we went through, the Willie Lynch letter and the making of a slave, that's all real. And so when I talk about the deep condition, the psychoses in the black community, when you say that we can own something, we don't believe we can own anything. And if you recall, and please guys, go share that show. That was on February 7th. Keep sharing that show. He says in there, right? He says, when you start to tell the slave that it's ours, then you empower them. But as long as you convince them that their greatest worth is to be in a hog pen, then all they'll ask you to do is to take care of the hog pen for them. So that's all we ask for. So the dirty streets that we live on, the dirty water that we drink, the turkey that we wash with the dirty water, that's what we believe. That's what we've been conditioned to believe is our lot in life. I want you to understand that. And so we have to, and so Vincent, this is why for me, we have to grab these factories of death, because this next generation is coming through there. And they're being socially engineered. They're being educated to believe the same thing. So we have to blow that up. But that takes political power. But right now we have black electeds in all of these towns who are caping for the establishment, who continue to put in positions of authority and decision making at these factories of death. Right? And they're just pumping through the next generation of slaves. We have to stop it. But I'm not going to look at that guy who's running to be president and say that's his job. No, help me tear down this system. And then I'm going to do the work to create the building blocks along with people like you and Kevin and Farrakhan and other folks from the Informed class. I'm not putting that on him. I'm not putting that on AOC. She's handling the business she's handling for the people who elected her, those Hispanics over there in the Bronx. So if she's not on code with me, I get that. But if you send me to Congress, then I'm going to sit with her and say, hey, listen, I understand what those folks in the Bronx want you to do, but you know what I was sent here to do? See, I know where I come from. I know myself. I know my lineage. I know our suffering. I know our pain. And like Kevin said, the only solution to the racial wealth gap and all the conditions that are facing us is to get economic and political power and reparations.
And and Vincent, who's against reparations? Who? I'm not talking about one individual, but the Democratic Party as a whole is against reparations.
Yes.
Yes. The whole party is against reparations. Nobody's talking against
the black folks. They're against the advancement of black people.
Right. Okay. I'm not.
Anything that's going to give them an advancement. We're not saying they're not against survival of black people. They're against the advancement of black people.
No. Exactly. They want to keep us.
That's the dream of Martin Luther King. They have a problem with the dream becoming a reality.
They want
to
keep
have a
us
problem
in
with
hospice
saying, okay,
care.
you're poor. Let me issue out some keys to you. Okay, let you fall into the trap. They have a problem when you say, wait a minute, I can own my store and sell the key.
Listen, they make a lot of money keeping us in hospice.
Of course.
I'm telling you. So they never want to cure the disease.
Yes, because there are political pimps that make their money in pimping poverty. You're looking at now the expansion in hurricane with Governor Christie when he said, okay, I'm going to get all of these grants so that you can help the poor with some reconstruction, with some construction, with bringing in industry. The only thing that helped was the 5% of the New Jersey elite.
Hey, gentlemen, I called back in because Eric had brought up something that I had spoke to him about before, about the high levels of incarceration and what it's doing to our community, right? Mm-hmm. Unless you're in it, to some degree, you're not going to realize it. And like I said, I can say where I'm at, okay, that there were, I believe, 18 people, or some gang set or whatever they would like to call it, right, arrested that operated off of 18th Street and 15th Avenue. There were like 10 off of 16th Street and 14th Avenue. All around me, they did this to like virtually every corner and every block. That is going to create, right, a vacuum, right, in which a new, younger version, poorly directed, black child will come into possession of that neighborhood, right, and the streets and the corners of it. And what it's going to do, it's going to make an even wilder, more violent, more dangerous, more drug addicted youth is going to come out of it, right? I see this every day. So when I'm saying this too, I'm not exaggerating. Right? I see it. I see that now. The kids that were 18, 19 that just got locked up, his little brother, little cousin that's 13, 14, 12, right? They're left out there. The only thing that they saw was their older cousin doing something, their older brother doing something. So now they're doing it, right? They're even younger and dumber. So you will know how they're going to be. And the reason I'm saying this is that we need to be careful. Now, for anybody listening, this is something you need to be talking to your mayor about, your council person about, because your wards are about to become hell zones. Right?
But you know what, though? But Farrakhan, but you know who's going to benefit from that? You know who's going to benefit from that? That facility that they're building up on South Orange Avenue and Grove Street. They're going to benefit from that. You understand what I'm saying?
Now, I'm wondering, what the hell is that? I've been told 5 different things.
None of that money went to anybody black. None of that money. Hey, you know what? Hey, Farrakhan, you know what? You bring up a very good point. And I just want to tell you, every time that I come to your barbershop and see you engaged the way you are, it just gives me a little bit of hope. And I ain't got that much. But let me just say this. I drove around your neighborhood. I drove around Newark one Saturday. and Newark is Beirut. I mean, what you just described to me, on top of what I saw, we're in trouble. We are in serious trouble.
I'm not being funny. It's also barren, right? I'm not going to front. By losing so many of the neighborhood kids, and you can say, well, they were selling drugs and they were doing this, right? Do you know what that does to the local business economy?
Yeah, of course. They still need haircuts. They still need to shop in the bodega.
That's my profit margin.
Yeah.
Right? That's my profit. That's how I feed myself, right? Because all of those cats are locked up. So those once a week, once a month, whatever they were, shape up and haircuts, they're going. Yeah. They're going for 20 years. Right? So for the next 2 or 3 years, I got to survive without that. Right?
But Farrakhan, it's like it really is interesting to hear this conversation, because it is our young men. It is
Hello?
our young
1 second, caller.
men only can take second position.
I'm gonna hang up and listen so you guys can get your other callers in.
When I hear what's happening to our young men on the heels of all of this social justice, restorative justice discussion, is that the mousetrap hasn't changed at all. That's number one. But number two, the other thing that really depresses me a little bit is the fact that our kids don't have a first position, they have a second position. And it's because of our lack of. That our kids now believe the only way they can survive is if they sell drugs. The only way they can survive if they do something that will take their freedom away from us, while we all out here fighting for our full citizenship. Like, we're not giving them their position in life is always the second position. Because we're not setting the best example that we can set by lending our voice to real powerful truth, like we're trying to do on this show. So, for instance, I give you a good example.
Real quick, Kevin, because I got a caller. Go ahead.
Oh, no, we'll take the other call. I don't want to keep a caller waiting. Take the call.
Go ahead, caller. Remember your example.
I remember my point, but just take the call. I got
caller,
it.
go.
No, I'm speaking to Kevin's point. I had to call back in. It goes back to Bloomberg's comments on Kevin's and Farrakhan's point. It goes back to Bloomberg's comments on stop and fix at the meeting that it wasn't supposed to get out on what they're doing. We have to stop. We have to start talking about statistical policing and the prison pipeline. We have fuel for that. Our children are fuel for that. They go around with this fishnet and just scooping people up to go through this pipeline, and it creates a more, like Farrakhan says, you know what I mean? The condition exacerbates, and it's just more fuel for their system. We have to speak to the young people in the language that they understand. That, we have to unfuel this pipeline and put that fuel to economic power and political power. But it gotta be in a language that they understand. Our only barrier between the young and the old in our community is that they don't understand what the hell we talking about.
Well, you know what, caller, you make a very good point, because they don't have any respect for us, because they know majority of us are trying to game them and con them, and majority of us have been propping up that second position as opposed to empowering them in the first position. So they don't trust us. Just like we talk about what's happening in this country, what's happening in black space, what's happening in black consciousness, they don't trust us. They think we'll sell them out in a second. But the other thing we do is that we don't push back and say, listen, we are no longer allowing you to be in second position. We're going to empower you to be in first position. And that takes work. That's not a con job. That's not a $3 hour job. That's something consciously that we have to commit ourselves to. But let me just say
it's definitely a conversation. Right. It's definitely a conversation that needs to be had. And the barrier of me speaking, in language that they don't understand, is the part of the problem.
Yeah.
So go ahead, I'm listening.
But let me stay there to caller for 1 second. Just the last couple of days, I've been following this whole thing that happened in front of Malcolm Shabazz School, when the young men beat up the coach. Then I saw this other thing that happened in the news, where kids spilled out and started fighting And I mean, like, I can't say what I really want to say because I have to control myself because I'll go off. But now we are now setting in condition. We are setting our kids to believe that the only thing they can do is be violent and act on violence. But guess what? There's no repercussions. I'm not going. If you beat up a teacher, if you beat up a leader, I mean, somebody that's supposed to be supporting you in your effort in sports, and you beat them up, you should be kicked out of school. See, there's no repercussions for bad behavior. If you spill out, I don't care if a parent came down and did whatever. If those kids did what they did at that basketball game, they should not be rewarded. Now, that's in that space. On the other space, guess what? We're getting the reward for doing nothing by those kids thinking that it's okay. You know why? Because politically right now in black space, politically right now in these urban centers, we have people that promote thuggery and misogyny and promote corruption. So they say that those people can do it, we can do it. If they can act like slaves and they can be slave catchers and they can do it, we can do it too.
Oh, no. We have a president that supports that. But it's a difference when he supports it for white people by saying, you know what, if you see a protester punch him in the mouth, he's promoting thuggery.
Yeah, but wait a minute. I'm talking about, listen, Trump is the Antichrist to whoever he needs to be the Antichrist to. I ain't got nothing to do with it. I'm talking about, wait a minute. I can't, no, I'm saying, we times in a row. I agree with you, Kevin. I know, Vincent. But just think about what I'm saying. Right now, culturally, in our neighborhoods, because we don't have a community, right? The kids that did that to the coach did it in front of the Malcolm X Shabazz High School. Now, I dare say, if I was a family member of Malcolm X Shabazz, and I've done some analysis on the success of those black kids in those schools, in that school, I would take my father's name off of it. If I was a Carver in the South Ward, and I saw the condition of those black kids in that school, I would take my ancestor Carver's name off of that school. All of these schools that are named after black people, all of these black people going around caping for the corporation of white supremacy, all of that is lending to what you said, Michael, and what Farrakhan said. Our kids are in second position because of the condition that we continue to keep setting up for them. True. And that is not promoting corruption, misogyny, and all the things we know are bad. We got to get rid of those people so we can save the lives of these kids.
Absolutely.
I'm not going to go in a room and have some psychological babble discussion with some kids that spilled over in a game and beat up people, and then we're all fighting to let them play the championship. Right. No.
If I can add to what Eric, and it goes a lot with what Eric said earlier, a lot of it has to do with accountability. If we want these politicians to be accountable, as parents, we need to be accountable. It's like you said, no. You tell your children, no. That is not the way to go. You know what? And this is how our ancestors made it. Black excellence.
Let me bring up another point. Since you brought up black excellence, but since you brought up black excellence, let me bring up another point. So you're going to talk about economic power, and this is why I have no respect. I just don't have no respect for these people. So just take the 6 black cities. I call them black cities. You got black mayors, you got black council, you got female, male now, so there's no disparity in gender, right? Mm-hmm. And if you add up their budgets, and then you go to the state and you add up that budget, it will clearly show you that black lives don't matter. Black power has no place in the discussion. Black economic power is a thought. Because if you just take their budgets and then the 94% of our vote we gave to this governor at the state of New Jersey, and you add up what they're getting as opposed to what we're getting, it's zero. So now, you don't have to, you can dislike me all you want. Just go get the budgets. Just find out where black voices are helping black people that have the capacity to build industry and build power and build wealth, and ask me how many black people in their cities are doing business.
Well, let me just say this, and then I'm going to say this, and then I'm going to get off the phone. I always look at stuff from an environmental perspective, and what happened at Shabazz High School, I don't know all the details. Just looking from outside, 3 principles I have: resources, morals. Resources, values, and health. The resources are not getting to those kids. We really need to check the level of lead exposure, because this thing, violence is only on, if they're being exposed like we sit with that, we think they're being exposed. This is just this is a microcosm of what is about to happen to the community if all of these kids are being exposed the way they say they're being exposed.
I agree.
As far as health is concerned, and then the values of people, the elected officials who come in and pointing the finger instead of, come on now, we being affected by this thing, and but they're pointing the finger at the kids and whatever. It's a lot bigger thing going on, and I mean, y'all bring it up, Malcolm. I done watched that series. I done watched that series, man. I'm upset about this shit, because I'm like, damn. The word that keeps leave it alone. It's the same language they using about this water.
Yeah.
It's the same. Leave it alone. Don't say that. And these people who are silent are the worst people who walk in the face of the damn earth, because they know what the hell is about to happen to these kids, and they should be ashamed of themselves. I'm getting on the phone, y'all should have never brought up about it.
No. He should be ashamed of himself when he goes around talking about he was the mayor for the people of Newark, knowing that water was crappy.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, these people don't have a problem. Hey, Michael, let me just be honest with you. They're going to get up tomorrow morning, and they're going to eat that bad egg sandwich and think it's caviar. Yeah. And they're going to take those kids, they're going to take their kids to those factories of death, and they're going to go home, and they ain't going to do nothing. But and if I could, one of the things, and I really like your point, but one of the things that we need to do, again, is, one, focus on our excellence. We cannot sit up here and ask a man to do something that we can't do for ourselves. Number two, in terms of that, and we're right, let's get some legislation in there and people in there who are going to vote on this legislation to level that playing field and let our excellence shine through. I can bet with 100% certainty, if I put an entrepreneur in the urban city against another entrepreneur on a level playing field, both may come out well. Definitely.
Well, I'm going to say that they won't have access to capital. So you have
that's what I said. Level playing field. Part of leveling that playing field is actually getting some banks to invest in.
Okay, got
it. Listen. Right now in America, right this minute, right? Every day you get up, you take your kids to the doctor, and let me just tell you how insidious it is. And now let's talk about the Democratic Party, because that's the party that we invest in. Right? Right now, the Democratic Party has sided with Farmer. And Farmer is saying, guess what? I'm not going to tell you what's going to be shot in your kids. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to take the rights from you, take your rights, so you won't have no ability to protect your kids from anything that I'm shooting in their arm that might cause them harm. That's number one. But number two, what that big Farmer is doing, they're now telling your elected officials that if they don't follow what we do to enrich our company, right, we're going to now tell your kids you can't go to school where you pay taxes at. Oh, I'll tell you now. Now I'm just on this. You got to understand how deep that is. So it's a little deeper than that, brother. Because this is also what Big Pharma does. See, Big Pharma has now got these politicians in their pockets, so getting these shots are mandatory. That's exactly. Let me tell you something now. Now, if anybody black listening to this show, anybody white listening to this show, Latina, black people has been directly impacted by this industry over and over again and tested as guinea pigs. And guess what? And will continue to be, because we're not what? There are no black voices, black people with black voices, except one person that stood up to Big Pharma. The rest of everybody else has been silent. When a young man, Jamel Holly, stood up against Big Pharma, you heard nothing from nobody. When he stood up to fight against the contaminated water, the poison water, you heard nothing from his black colleagues. Nothing. That's true. Not one thing. And you know what, though? And that is what I'm saying. Black folk are comfortable with being in third position, which keeps our people and our kids in second position, which does what? Give us zero return on any one of those investments. Come get the hell out of here. Are you kidding me? Hey, Brother Kevin, if I can add to that, not only that, but systematically we teach our children to be submissive.
and to remain in that position.
Well, of course we
Well,
do.
that
But
goes
I
back
talked.
to the Willie Lynch letters.
It goes back to the Willie Lynch letters, and we saw it in full display when Norcas realized that they had lead in the water, that water had carcinogens in it, and they lined up like sheep to get bottles of water. They didn't protest, they didn't rally, they didn't do any of that. Literally, they just went docilely and lined up to get water.
True.
And you know what they did, Vincent? They brought their kids to show their kids the demeanor they should have when they're under attack, which is just line up and take what's given to you.
Wow.
I want you to understand. See, this is...
Wow. That's sad. That's sad.
Now tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me that didn't happen.
You're not wrong.
You got a caller. Caller, go.
I just want to say, I heard Kevin say, we have to stop. I don't believe, sincerely, that black folks are just so downtrodden that we don't want better. The fact of the matter is, most of us don't understand that not only is there better to have, but there's better for us to have.
Willie Lynch letters.
We can have that debate, but I'm telling you, I don't like it when we or anyone says black folks just don't want nothing.
Guess what? That's one
why the things that we have done to try to change our station in society.
Let him finish, because I got
we have tried many ways of getting out of the situation. The fact of the matter is, the way the system is designed is no matter which way you try, they're going to penalize you to keep you down. So that's what happens for most of us. Now, that's not all. Some do know better, right? Some do, but I just have to say, we should not be saying that black folks don't want it.
Guess what? I'm going to say, and anybody black, I'm going to say right now, and I'm going to stand on my position. Okay? Now, listen, I don't need 100% of people to understand everything, but there's a huge swath of black Americans in this country that do understand something. Okay? And I am going to be 57 years old on Sunday. All right? So if I have to look at the metrics, and equating all of the negative things that you've just discussed and we've discussed on this show as it relates to systemic racism, as it relates to all these policies we're fighting against, guess what? We are the only group in America right this moment, no matter what's going on right now, has settled for the condition that we live in. I'm not waiting. Martin Luther King told us the answer to that statement was to say that we are also the only group that has been subject to being the subject of every other group. I'm not disqualifying. See, I think we might be saying two different things, Frank. I'm not disqualifying anything that you're saying. But when I look at us as a group, right, and I look at the condition that we are presently sitting in right now, right? I'm saying to you, as a group, right? We, as a group, don't want anything better. Because let me tell you why. If we did, right now, the question of what we're going to do with our school board wouldn't be a question. The question right now of what our black electors are doing for us wouldn't be a question. The question that our water was poisoned and that this man lied and caused irreparable harm on the future of my kids would not be an issue. When it comes down to talking about economic empowerment and real people that understand what the value of that is, we wouldn't be having this conversation. So what that tells me is those negative policies, all the systemic racism that we talk about, the corporation of white supremacy, all of the stuff that we understand, we are quite comfortable with it because Willie Lynch says that if you do this, up until 300 years or whatever, you would have won. And guess what? They're winning because guess what? Nobody wants to hear from you, Farrakhan. Nobody wants to hear from Eric. Nobody wants to hear from people that are saying, we have a problem. There's something wrong. There's a storm gathering. They're saying that Eric's crazy, that the parent that's fighting for their kids is crazy when it comes to Big Pharma shooting him with poison. Every time we stand up against these people, they say we crazy. And guess who runs on the other side all the time? Black folk. They They don't want to deal with what Eric is talking about. They don't want to deal with none of these, what the people that are really standing up for them are saying. So guess what? If I have to analyze that from a mathematical equation, it's saying what? They don't care. Because if you know these things, if you know what Malcolm said, if you know what Martin said, if you know what Du Bois said, if you know what all of the great women of our time have said, they're saying is, now what is the goddamn excuse today?
Here's the big thing. As Eric said, accountability. One of the biggest problems that we have with accountability is that we don't hold ourselves accountable to our own bullcrap. And you're absolutely right, Kevin.
Intelligent. Oh, we don't intellectualize this. Let me just tell you what's going on. We are cowards. I'm not intellectualizing nothing else or anybody. We are. And Farrakhan, listen, I see what you do every day. I see how you do it. You got a house right next door to you. I want to tell you the horror of it all. Here's a black man that has been in that community for 14 years, and when you go in there, he's got his TV on to something that's positive for black Americans. He's having a positive black discussion with black young men and women, right? And there's a house next door to him. I dare you, if he went right now and asked this administration, the Bonnie Gotti administration, the black protester administration, I could go on and on, ask him for the house, he wouldn't get it. But they don't value what he does. And if you go around the corner from his store, his barbershop that's clean, is trash up and down every one of those streets.
Right.
It's trash. So the kids walk into trash when they go home, walking by all of the death when they go home. That's what we give to our kids, and that's why they act out the way they do. Because it gets back to what you said, Vincent. It's about excellence.
There you go.
Right.
And Farrakhan, I salute you on your excellence.
I love
So
that.
Farrakhan, Vincent, because we got 2 minutes, I want you to introduce yourself to the people who just tuned in. I'll give you that opportunity.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Farrakhan.
Hello, world. I'm Vincent Squire. I am the candidate for United States Senate. I'll be taking on the Democratic incumbent. What's his name again? Oh, Cory Booker. Now, I want you to vote for me for 2 reasons. One, I believe that what we've been getting now from our Senate, we deserve better. We deserve someone who is going to do everything that we discussed today. Be accountable, to stand up for us, have the courage to fight Washington so that we can bring the money back home to our state. New Jersey right now is 50th of all the states in terms of returns on your federal dollars. What that money does is it helps us to fund things like better schools. We can do things like clean our water. We can do things like promote economic growth in the urban communities and make positive changes. New Jersey, for what we pay in, we can do better, and we deserve better. And I want to thank you, Mr. Dawson, for having me on your show. Kevin, I am so impressed that in 2 hours I agreed with you 4 times.
You wearing that bow tie. That's right.
Hey,
no,
listen,
man, it was great to have you on the show. But we got to talk about our book.
Yes.
When the affirmative action was white, I'm quite sure Eric is going to be loading up the book in the next couple of days and showcasing the date. But there goes to show you what we're talking about. When affirmative action was white, and it will show you how every community has benefited from socialism. I hate to do that, right? But it's benefited from the corporation of white supremacy, and we have. You're going to see it. When you read this book, you're going to see it.
Thank you guys for tuning in. Please hit the share button and make sure you go back to the episode on February 7th and hit the share button. This is one of my social experiments, guys. I want to see if we can get that show up to 500 shares. So let's do your part and see if we can get up to 500 shares. Thank you guys for tuning in.
You can find us Squire Presented on Facebook.
Hey, Kevin.
How can people get to you, Vince? How can people get you, Vincent?
You can reach me on Facebook, Squire for Senate, or you can check my website out, Squire for the number 4 Senate.
Hey, Vincent, put it in the thread too, okay? So people can get it.
I certainly will.
Hey, Kev.
I can't express how much I enjoyed the show today.
Hey, man, listen, we're glad to have you. Hey, Kevin, listen, we didn't get a chance to talk about Who Killed Malcolm X, right?
We'll do it tomorrow.
But listen, Farrakhan and I, we kind of opened up round 1 Yesterday.
Stick and move, Farrakhan. Stick and move, baby.
Yo, listen, he was throwing some hard ones. I was moving. But
Stick and move, Farrakhan. Get it, man.
Listen,
One of the things I want to say is this. Listen, we are black people, that are living an experience that the average human being couldn't even understand. And they never will. And, to have black people having this discussion, whether you feel good about it or not, it's just a good thing. It's all right to have this discussion. It's all right even to not agree with each other on certain things. But there's one thing for certain that we should agree, that we should be fighting with all of our hearts and minds and souls, right, to uplift our people. And anybody that's in the way of that, black, white, Latino, anybody that's selling you garbage is hope. Anybody that's corralling you and hurting you like cattle to kill you, you got to get rid of them.
You know what, Kevin? I think the language has to be more direct now. They're not just selling garbage as hope. They are really agents of the corporation of white supremacy.
I got you.
They're really agents of the corporation of white supremacy. This construct that we've been talking about, this mousetrap that we've been talking about, these folks who are caping for it, they are agents of destruction. They're agents of the corporation of white supremacy. They do not have your best interests at heart, and they are participating in your homicide. We have to have that very clear and honest conversation about it at this point.
Well, true.
Thank you guys for tuning in.
You were very good, Vincent. This is the first time that I didn't want to throw my computer at you. You didn't want to throw your computer at me. I love you. It was really wonderful. It was wonderful.
I love you, brother.
I love you too, man.
Because the best thing is that we can disagree, but we don't have to be disagreeable.